It's easy to see which rides children feel comfortable on. And there are those cars where kids, and their parents likewise, feel at home, primarily thanks to plenty of space. Conjuring up an additional little surprise is always welcome, of course, such as these doors. But more on that later. The new Opel Meriva has lots to offer. For starters, there's the fuel-efficient diesel engines, always good when the family budget's stretched. And all 4 versions boast smooth running and plenty of power. The range begins with a 1.3-liter common rail turbo diesel with 95 horsepower. That's enough for a mini MPV like the Meriva, especially in city traffic. The new engines are an important addition for the Opel Meriva, particularly in Europe. Diesel has always been a popular option here, and not just among truck drivers. In Europe, says Opel's Verena Wienicke, diesel engines account for 30% of sales. In countries like France and Italy, the figure is as high as 70%. The most efficient version of the 1.3 CDTI bears the EcoFlex badge. It has an average consumption of 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers and boasts a CO2 emissions level of under 120 grams. The family-friendly Funster is just 4 meters 28, very useful on the parking front. But the Meriva looks bigger than its official dimensions would suggest. And it also seems big on the inside, with stowage options and practical ideas wherever you look. The armrest between the 2 front seats, for example, can be not only shifted, but completely removed. Opel essentially has 2 target groups, explains Verena Wienicke. The first comprises young families with small children, and the second includes active senior citizens. What really sets the new Meriva apart, though, is its flexible door and interior concept. Here, Opel shows just one of the variants possible. The rear seats can also be moved individually to free up more cargo space behind. But the real eye-catchers are the rear flex doors. The flex doors now allow you to slide effortlessly into the car, says Verena Wienicke. So no more back-twisting. When Opel did its market research, customers asked for an extra handle on the B-pillar to make it easier to get in and out. And we at Opel were only too happy to oblige. The bigger 1.7 CDTI is the first Opel engine to feature diesel engine management, developed in-house. It works with other advanced engine features to deliver better fuel employment, lower emissions, plus less noise and vibrations. It's this kind of innovation that is helping Opel become more independent of its parent, General Motors. The 1.7 CDTI with manual transmission and 130 horsepower is a nifty shifter, but the dynamic engine is also relatively quiet. The official consumption is 5.2 liters for 100 kilometers. The suspension is family-friendly and comfortable, so if you want to take your kids for some exciting but safe fun, then this is a sound option. The new Meriva diesel is an enticing choice for cost-conscious car buyers who want a fully functioning mini MPV, especially given the ingenious little ideas now on board for no extra money. The new Ford Grand C Max is even more versatile, more agile, and sportier than its predecessors. It comes with a choice of 3 gasoline and 4 diesel engines of varying sizes, boasting between 100 and 145 horsepower. Additional safety features like headlamps with cornering light, plus a reversing camera, make it an even greater pleasure to drive. Following the Kia Sportage's launch in August, 2 new small engines have been added to the range. Both the new diesel and gasoline units will only be available in combination with front-wheel drive and a 6-speed manual transmission. A start-stop system is also an optional extra. According to the manufacturer, the diesel unit is capable of a fuel consumption of 5.3 liters for 100 kilometers. Today, we are looking at 2 compact cars that are pretty sporty, the Renault Mégane RS and the VW Golf GTI. First of all, let's look at the stats. The GTI was and is the definition of performance at Volkswagen. Generations of young Germans have been dreaming since 1976 about driving a car like this. These days, it has 210 horsepower and a top speed of 240 kilometers per hour. That leaves most cars for dead. Not the Renault Mégane RS, though. It packs 250 horsepower and, officially at least, has a top speed 5 kilometers per hour faster than the GTI. And it manages it all for 1,600 euros less than the VW. The money saved can be put aside for the more frequent visits needed to the gas station. Our car tester Matis Kurat wants to compare the performance. The Golf manages 0 to 100 in 6.9 seconds, assuming you are fast with the clutch and the gear stick. The Renault, in comparison, needs just 6.1 seconds. For racing off the line, the French car is definitely ahead. The prize for acceleration goes to Renault. But what about handling? The Renault is also better here, provided, of course, that the roads are in good condition. As befitting a sports car, the RS has very firm suspension. So what about the comfort front, asks our tester. This is where the Renault ends its dominance. The suspension is hard, meaning your back takes a battering. And the sound of the engine at high speeds is also very loud. The Golf is different, though. A well-tuned suspension means that going over the bumps is almost unnoticeable, and it can be adjusted. Sound insulation means a more comfortable ride. So for long journeys, the Renault definitely comes up short. What about the design? Asked Matis. The Renault Mégane RS has a daring look. With a spoiler at the front, it sort of looks like a Sprinter on the starting blocks. At the back, the central exhaust, the diffuser, and the roof spoiler certainly make an impression. That's what a sports coupe should look like. The window design reduces visibility, though. The VW has a more classic look. The only real design difference in comparison to other Golf models is the red detailing and air intake at the front. At the back is a dual exhaust, diffuser, and a roof spoiler. The bonus with the GTI is the 5-door option, and its layout is a little simpler. As our tester explains, the heart of these cars is under the front bonnet. The Golf GTI has a 2-liter TSI engine with dual superchargers and 210 horsepower. As mentioned, the Mégane RS raises the bar a little higher with 250 horsepower. What about everyday use, asks our man? A look at the back of the Mégane reveals a high trunk and a small hatch. But once inside, it's clear the Renault has more space than the Golf. But only when the back seats are put up straight.
Bleibt nur noch eine Frage zu
So which car is better value for money?
mehr fürs Geld.
Let's summarize both sides now. The VW Golf GTI has the big name. It costs more money too, but has better fuel consumption. Around bends, the Golf's handling is not as exciting as that of the Mégane. But the Golf has a small advantage when comparing the two cars' performance at high speeds. The Renault Mégane RS looks like a real racing thoroughbred, and it is, but it's a real fuel guzzler. Although it does well on the side roads, it's a hard ride on the Autobahn. All in all, the Golf is a better bet. So the race between these two cars goes to the new version of an old classic, the Golf GTI. Dustin Hoffman followed the love of his life in an Alfa Romeo straight across California in The Graduate. And Roger Moore as James Bond outpaced all the bad guys in the same brand car. The Italian car maker re-released one of its top products in 2007, the 8C Competizione, in a reinterpretation of the famous 8C car from the 1930s. Thomas Supati collects Alfas and says that this car is a real beauty with great acceleration. It's a classic sports car, and it looks great, he says. Alfa Romeo has been building fast cars for 100 years now. They're still as popular now as they have ever been. Thomas says the car is like a dream for him. It makes him happy, even when it's just sitting there doing nothing. The Alfa enthusiast rarely lets himself get overtaken in his Competizione, aside from when it's a 1939 8C coming up behind him. He says there are parallels between his modern car and the original version. The sporting spirit is the common element, says Supati. Cuore sportivo is what the Italians say. Alfa's sporty touch can be seen immediately in this classic car, and he thinks it will be pretty quick. There's 200 horsepower underneath the hood of the 8C. The car is still considered the absolute epitome of Alfa Romeo by classic car buffs. It's the combination of sound and looks that does it, says antique car restorer Tom Fisher. In the 1930s, top engineers like Vittorio Jano and so on gave this generation of Alfa Romeo a really good name. Since then, the company has been trying to restore this reputation, according to Fisher. In the early 1930s, Alfa designer Vittorio Jano sent the 8C out onto the racetrack. It promptly won all the major events of its era. An anniversary run in Balocco, Italy a few months ago, the 8C was again the center of attention, whether as a sports car or as a sedan. Today, these babies can be worth up to 25 million euros.
This icon remains today one of the best car preferred by collectors and one the most representative car for Alfa Romeo history.
And the 24 HP likewise got to show off in Balocco. This was the first car to emerge from the Alfa factory in Milan in 1910. The Giulietta came after the introduction of mass production following the Second World War. It marked a real breakthrough, a model that is a must-have item for Thomas Supati. For him, it was always the Alfa model. It was the first debut design by Giugiaro. He was head designer at Bertone, and he drew his first design on a napkin at the dinner table. Look at the result. Giorgio Giugiaro had a permanent influence on Alfa. He created both the Giulia Sprint, the GTV, and the Alfa Sud. Sadly, the latter came to symbolize the vehicle's susceptibility to repair. Alfas had to be treated right, insists Thomas Supati. They like to be warmed up and cooled down. Then they're the most dependable cars you could imagine.
Und dann sind sie aber die zuverlässigsten Autos überhaupt.
In 1986, Alfa Romeo was taken over by Fiat, and it took a while for the brand to recover its sporty image. The brand new Giulietta has a distinct emotional appeal to Alfa fans.
Ganz gut erreicht.
Thomas Supati approves of the result, but he's not surprised. He admits Alfa have been on the reserve side over the past 20 years. But now that's changed. Vintage expert Tom Fisher says Alfa is on the right track, standing by its name and expanding on what the brand stands for. 100 years of Alfa Romeo. It's been a dynamic story so far, and this is a brand that still has its fans enthralled.